Hi, good morning. Things are very chaotic here in our house because we just came back from Germany, where the girls had a 2 week trial period at the Waldorf School there. And our flights got cancelled like three times, like two times because of snow in Germany, and one time because of mist at the airport here in Schiphol in the Netherlands. And we managed to get back home with a delay of, let me see, we were supposed to fly Sunday to be on time at school Monday, and we arrived this past Thursday. So I don't know, 3, 4 days delay without our suitcases because they obviously were delayed and left back in Germany. And good news for us, I mean, like personal news, is that the trial period went really well. The girls loved the school. We also loved the school. So we are doing this. We are actually moving to Germany once we manage to find a house. That is not as easy as you might think. We've managed to find two lovely, like, farmhouses in the middle of nowhere. That would mean about 4 hours commute back and forth every day. So that's not happening. Even though I was like very close to living my homestead dream. But my brother kindly pointed out that I do not drive and farmers usually have their farmer trucks. So that's not happening right now, and I should eventually learn how to drive. If you hear banging noises, these are the cats like thinking they really want to go out and then realizing it's cold and wet and coming back in. Um, Anyhow, so that's the personal part. And Nikos is still in Germany with my brother and his wife, visiting houses, trying to solve that. While I'm back here and trying to still have a bit of a holiday spirit for the girls and also for myself to keep things a bit nice and cozy despite all the disruption. Let me show you. Let me see if I can show you a bit. Yeah, this is our seasonal table there. I don't know if you can see, we have an advent spiral, mushrooms because it's the advent of plants. And then let me see if I can show you the tree without seeing all the chaos on our floor. Okay, you can also see our floor, so all the toys are there. Um, so yeah, that is how things are here. Let me see. But I still wanted to talk to you, like make a video and talk to you not only about our news and our update, but more about why I am making our move extra complicated and difficult by insisting on the kids going to a Waldorf school. So today I want to talk like it's going to be a bit of a freestyle video. I don't have notes, I don't have a list with me. The reason is because I do have limited time, but I still want to communicate with you, and also because I know really well why I want a Waldorf school. So maybe the information is going a bit back and forth, but it will be there. Like the reasons why we really, really want the Waldorf school for the kids. Um, and the first reason for me is storytelling. Storytelling, archetypes, lore, myths, all that kind of stuff. In Waldorf schools, you do have lots and lots of storytelling, and as the kids age, the stories are more age appropriate. So maybe you start from the fables of Aesop, like Aesopus, we call him in Greek. Not sure about his name in English, and then they move on. I think to some religious stories as well. I think now New Testament or something like that, or maybe the creation. No, I think that the creation story happens now in the third class for Lulu, but they also have like ancient Greek mythology and Germanic mythology, Northern mythology, and through all these stories that they tell the kids and that the kids are drawing about them and writing about them, and this is how they process actually all that storytelling, and it includes all sorts of archetypes. The Grimm's fairy tales as well, of course, and I know that's one of the many things that are controversial about um, Waldorf schools and Steiner education. Grimm stories are quite heavy, and their original versions are very brutal. Obviously, they are told again in an age appropriate version to the kids. Why do I think that storytelling is so important? I think that actually our whole life is not very different than the lives of other animals. Like there is a lot of just survival, obviously, and then random things that happen to us, and giving a meaning to our life and giving a purpose is actually what makes humans different than the other animals. That in order not to fall into desperation, in order not to, have this dark cloud of knowing the fact that our existence is basically a fact of chance. Like, is there going to be an earthquake? Is there going to be a wildfire? Is there going to be um, another sort of natural disaster and we all die? It could happen at any minute, not taking into account the whole climate change and stuff like that. Could there be, a sickness that wipes us all off the planet of Earth? And it is more a miracle. The fact that we live is actually more miraculous than uh, than dying. It is actually very, the human life is very fragile. And stories do come and give a meaning to it. They give a beginning, a middle, an end. They can also give you a loop of different circles that we do into life, like a spiral. They tie things together. They are the red thread that help us make sense of what is happening in our lives. Whether that is only in our mind or if there is a higher purpose, it really depends on how spiritual you are and what type of spirituality is actually aligning with your own psyche and your own values. So I can imagine that for Muslim people or for Christians, there is this whole sense of, if you do good in this life, then you go to heaven, or then you have a better reincarnation in a following life, or it really depends on your religion and on your faith. But I feel that even for people who are purely atheists, um, knowing the story of their life and the way they tell the story of their life and the stories we tell about ourselves can really affect how we experience our daily life. And this is also why, obviously, narrative therapy exists as a form of therapy, because the way we talk about ourselves and the things we have achieved and our traumas and our challenges in life can change our daily life. So, stories, yeah, obviously very, very important for me. The other thing I really like is acknowledging the change of seasons, what is happening in nature, and with the update, like with the version 2 of Waldorf education that is slowly happening since the 100-year anniversary a couple of years ago. Waldorf schools get more and more focused actually in nature and not so much on religion and faith, while acknowledging and celebrating different religious holidays as well, depending where the Waldorf school is in the world and what the community is celebrating. It is still more about nature and the seasons and Mother Earth. And I find it also very valuable, like teaching our kids not just to look around them, but to really see in depth what is happening, what is changing around them, what is changing on the trees, on the ground, on what foods are produced on every different season. Because only when you know what is normal, what is the normal change of seasons, what is the normal way that nature functions, can you also realize how this is changing because of the way that us people are treating the earth, and realizing later on as they grow why it is very important to treat the earth with more respect, and reducing the effect we have on the earth, on climate, on microclimate, because it will really reflect back to our own way of life. So honoring nature is for me also a big plus, and that is happening a lot in Waldorf schools, despite the differences that they might have depending on the region. Then another big plus I find in Waldorf education is the focus, not the focus, but the importance that is given to arts. There is a lot of singing, there is a lot of music making, musical instruments, flutes, recorders, depending what school you're going to, violin. There are variations, but kids learn to play music. They learn to read music as well in higher elementary school classes. and there is a lot of drawing, a lot of handworking, woodworking. Um, so there is also the more abstract arts, but also the very hands-on practical life skills that you learn there, from, how do you bang a nail in the proper way to make a wooden construction, how to use a saw, how to how to really create things with your hands. And handworking is very important, not just for when civilization collapses and we have to start from the beginning, but also because it really helps you empty your head, and it helps you be mindful, and it helps you be present. So being busy with your hands, whether you're knitting or doing embroidery, or working with clay, or doing watercolor drawing, it really helps you get out of your head and into the present moment. So I find this is also a great plus for Waldorf children, that they learn from a very young age and they know how to utilize. And more schools, Waldorf schools, are actually also doing lots of mindfulness training, like yoga for children, without even calling it that, but more like they will start the day by like the whole class closing their eyes and taking a few deep breaths. I saw that happening in our kids' school as well, and then calming down, and then starting the day, like sorts of a landing ceremony before you start your day. Um, and I think these life skills are super important in a world that is becoming faster and faster and faster. Um, so that's another big plus. And when it comes to the specifics of us moving to another country, and me insisting, and Nikos also being on board, insisting on finding a Waldorf school, there are two reasons for it. Three reasons. The first reason is actually that I really value Waldorf education, and I find that it is actually the best available type of education out there right now, that addresses the issues of humanity and the challenges of humanity, and can create a next generation that can actually be resilient and yet proactive in changing the life of humans for the better. The second reason is that I wanted our children to have a continuity in their education while we are moving countries. So even in terms of very practical, how a Waldorf class looks, I say it jokingly, it's very provocative, the McDonald's of education, just because like you go in a McDonald's, it doesn't matter which part of the world you go to, it looks the same. It is the same for a Waldorf classroom. You have natural materials, you have wood, silk, wool, cotton, and the same watercolor hues and the same soft colors on the walls. So it is a familiar environment. Like when you walk into a school, if it's a Waldorf school immediately. So that gives a sense of familiarity for our kids. And the third reason is that actually in Germany, there is no fifth grade, but already from the fourth grade, depending on your results, on your, I think there are no final exams, but on your grades, it is decided to which type of secondary education you go. And that could be high school, gymnasium, I think it is called, like from the Greek word, or then a technical school, or some in between, a vocational education. Or so you are very, very early on judged based on your grades. And I do hear there is quite flexibility in that. So even if you feel that you're more academically inclined, but still your grades made you end up in a school that is more practical, you can still give exams later on and change your career, your education. And this is also a bit how it is in the Netherlands as well. So it is not a rigid path, and you do have a chance to change. However, I don't think it is as easy as it sounds, since you are also surrounded then by classmates with different goals and values, and peer pressure is very, very real, especially as you go into the teenage years. So I did want to give my kids the time to fully develop into who they are, into who they want to be before they choose what they study. And there is a continuity in Waldorf schools and also in Montessori schools in Germany that goes up to the 12th class and even the 13th class, because if you do want to give exams to get the Abitur, like the final diploma of the primary education or the before you study, um, then you can have an extra year to deepen your knowledge and to bridge any gaps you might have. Um, and especially because Lulu, my oldest, she would be like in the she would we go in Germany. She's in the middle of the third class, so she would then start the next year in the fourth class, where stress is already high and grades are already do matter a lot. And I didn't want to put her through that, especially because I have a personal experience of how it is to be a highly anxious child and a sensitive child as well, and having to deal with the pressure of grades and how be evaluated with numbers and stuff like that. It was very heavy for me. And while I do want them to be challenged and to reach their full potential and, to face difficulties so that they can become resilient and they can be creative and they can figure ways out and they can learn how to learn and how to grow, I don't want that to be under the pressure of grades, because I feel that is unproductive, counterproductive, and can also be potentially traumatizing. And I know trauma is overused as a word, but there are different kinds of trauma. And do believe me, I did have like sleepless nights, and I did have like the belly aches, and I did have all the anxiety symptoms as a child. And my parents really tried to help me with that, but being rather anxious types themselves, I wouldn't say it went smoothly, though. I did achieve my academic goals, and I did study in a university and I did get the engineering degrees. But the cost of it, I am still unsure if it was worth it or not. And of course, we cannot compare because we are talking like 20 years back, and the context was very different. So, but I have learned a lot from that experience, and I know which parts I do not want to reproduce in my own children's childhood. Now, I would like to also address the controversial sides of world of education, because maybe you've watched the first part of this video and you're thinking, wow, that sounds like a very good idea. Let me Google Waldorf schools around me. Let's see what this is all about. Please do that. I really, really believe it is a wonderful type of education. But I also want to address the controversies surrounding it. And my experience comes from the initial research I made before deciding into sending our kids to a Waldorf school together with my husband. And then my practical experience, my empirical evidence of if it works or not here in a school in the Netherlands, and also our short trial period in the school in Germany that we will hopefully start soon, and all the research I did about also Waldorf schools in Germany. So the biggest controversy about Waldorf schools that is also very, very unfair is the fact that the man who actually invented the Waldorf school system and philosophy behind it, Rudolf Steiner, was an occultist, probably a very, very charismatic and smart man, because he actually ventured and created theories and philosophies in many different fields, ranging from indeed education, agriculture, health and pharmaceutics, religion. He was part of the Theosophic Society, and then he had a fight with them and had his own way. What else? Like architecture as well. Like he designed the Goethenaum, and you can see that also Waldorf schools, they have a distinct architecture, especially if they're built from the start, from scratch. And he wrote many, many, many books. He really analyzed his theories, and the thing is that his spiritual and religious part was quite out there. His vision, like he talked about reincarnation, parallel universes, and all sorts of beings, spiritual beings, like from fairies to demons to all kinds of stuff. There is this whole theory of second Jesus, and I don't know, I'm not into religion, so I don't really mind all that. I don't really mind that he was a heretic or that he's considered a heretic. I'm very, very interested in reading more into that just because I really love all kinds of storytelling and that these are also stories. I'd like to read them more in depth, but apparently his writing is quite complex and deep and it takes a lot of time to unpack. So a lot of people, especially if you're like a Christian, like a Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant Christian, you might have issues with Steiner and how he viewed things. There is a lot of controversy about him because while talking about reincarnation, he suggested that actually you start like when you're born as a human, you start as a black person, and then as you proceed, you end up reincarnating as a white person. Obviously, that sounds extremely racist in the here and now. Times were different back then. I don't know if he was racist or if he was not racist. The things he said and he wrote definitely read as racist today. But I find that judging a person that lived more than 100 years ago with today's context is quite unfair. Anyhow, in it is so if you really look into Steiner and if you really believe that Waldorf education is also all about anthroposophy, which is the umbrella term used for all of his, that he also used for all his philosophies, like overarching the many different sectors of life. Yeah, then you might have issues with Waldorf education. What I personally have seen and have noticed is that at least in the Netherlands and in Germany, people focus in his vision on education and not on the rest of the things. And yes, there are anthroposophic doctors. My kids had to be examined by the anthroposophic doctor in order to be accepted at the Waldorf School there, and he is prescribing normal medicine as well as homeopathy medicine, and you might have issues with that as well. You do not have to follow the rest of Steiner's ideas and philosophies in order for your kids to be admitted at the Waldorf School. Waldorf schools are trying to be more and more open to people from different backgrounds. Which brings me to the second point of controversy, and that is that Waldorf schools are absolutely not there yet. They are a bubble. Here in the Netherlands, there is a term that you have witte scholen, zwarte scholen. So you have schools that have primarily white kids and that are not that open or have a very, very small percentage of foreign students, especially of also background, like from Morocco or Turkey or Syria or with an immigrant background. And Waldorf schools are very, very white. It is slowly changing. 2 years ago, there was this, how do you call it? Conference, probably, for all the Waldorf schools that was focused on diversity and inclusivity. And a lot is starting to change. For example, now all the little gnomes and angels that you see at Waldorf schools, they do appear with different skin colors, which is really nice. Sometimes it is done in a rushed way and in a forced way, because kids will usually play with each other harmoniously, and then teachers will be like, we are all the same, we can all play together, let's look at the color of your hands, you have different colors of hands. The kids might not have even noticed up to that point, or they have noticed but it doesn't matter, and then it gets them thinking more, why are we talking about this, should this be an issue? And of course it depends on how each teacher is presenting that. Personally, I think it is more about everyone feeling represented, and you don't have to over talk it, like over analyze it, especially not in the kindergarten level or first grades. But anyway, it is still good that the discussion has started and opened up, even if it is happening imperfectly and even if there are growth pains about it. It's still good that it is happening. So if you do want to have your child in a school that is a reflection of society, I am sorry, but I cannot say that Waldorf schools are there yet. However, if you would like to enjoy the benefits of a Waldorf education, what you could do is make sure that you provide that your child has this contact with society, with different types of people of different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, gender identities, whatever it is that you're worried about that your kid is not getting enough variety of, from your own social circle. It is also, as parents, it is also our own responsibility to help our kids get to know the world. It shouldn't be only the school's responsibility. I do know it is harder if the school is not a reflection of society, because you do have to do the extra work, and this is why I'm putting it here, just to be transparent about it. Another point is that Waldorf schools are private. In the Netherlands, it is a bit complex, like the funding system, but we as parents do not pay. We pay a voluntary amount every year that is in our school. It is around like 300 euros per year per kid. But actually, in the rest of Europe, Waldorf schools are private. And they are quite expensive. Definitely not as expensive as international schools, for example, or elite. I don't know, but they are private, so you do have to have a budget for it. In Germany, usually the money you get from the government, like the subsidy you get as a parent, does more or less cover the fees. So it is not as bad as it sounds. So if you have financial difficulties, there are also ways. There is a solidarity principle. So if you really want your kid to go to a Waldorf school and you can't afford it, please do send an email to the school and see if something could happen. If something could be done, if something could be done for your kid to be admitted, even though you face financial hardship. But it is still a minus. I mean, I really wish that Waldorf schools were much more accessible to everyone. It is really a shame that now they seem to be apart from what the general population, like the middle class or lower middle class, could offer their kids education wise. It is obviously making just the gap bigger between people of different incomes. So yeah, it sucks. There's no way around it. Like, I feel super privileged that we are able to offer that to our kids. I'm very thankful we can do that. But I still find very, like, I'm very sorry. It really makes me sad that it's not accessible to every child, world of education. So that's another minus point. What else? Oh, another one is that in many Waldorf schools, the kids have the same teacher from grade 1 until like grade 5, 6, 7, 8. This can be wonderful because the teacher is not bored, because they relearn, revisit the material every year from a different grade, a different level. So this keeps them on their toes, this keeps them interested, it doesn't bore them to death. However, if your kid doesn't click with a teacher, it can mean like 5, 6, 7 years of suffering at school because they don't get along with the teacher. Are there workarounds for it? Depends. Like, most Waldorf schools are quite small in scale, which means you don't have like 3 different grade 3 classes, for example. So it's not that they could switch to a different teacher. And unfortunately, there are also Waldorf teachers, that's more prevalent in England and Ireland from what I've read, but teachers that believe that everything happens for a reason, and they take literally what Steiner said or wrote or misinterpret it and say that if your child has been in this class with that teacher or these classmates that don't get along with him, this is to teach him something from a previous life or teach him something for his following life. That is also an issue with bullying. Like, there is obviously a lot of bullying in many schools nowadays. It's not a Waldorf phenomenon for sure. But I've read a lot online about Waldorf schools and bullying, that it can be that teachers that are especially older, or their thinking is a bit backwards, think that it is something to be deserved and that comes from the past. It is horrible. Thankfully, my experience in our school here is very, very different. Like, whenever there was bullying, it was addressed and something was done about it. My kids have not been victims of bullying and have not bullied others, as far as I know. So all experiences I have about it are from friends. And as a parent, you do need to be serious about it. You do need to keep, pressing about it. But there are things done and there are protocols in place. But do keep in mind, because like, the teacher is basically the most important thing. Like, if you have a good teacher, I think it doesn't matter that much in which school your child is. Your child will fall in love with learning and will build their confidence and will bloom into being who they need to be. So even if you have the most wonderful Waldorf school with the best materials, and you do have a teacher that it thinks that uh, that is really interpreting Steiner word by word, or is even is even following Waldorf education traditions that were not even created by Steiner, but by the first teachers, you can feel stuck. You can feel that your kid is stuck. And let me give you an example about it. In many kindergartens, and um, all the papers are like cut round at the corners, because some of the first kindergarten teachers interpreted what Steiner said, that the kids, like at this tender age, they need softness, and the corners were too harsh. Like, imagine all the time wasted cutting the corners round. I mean, it looks cool. Like, every drawing with a round corner border looks cooler, looks nicer, softer, but still, I mean, it is a waste of time. It is a bit of backwards thinking. Or then the whole idea that felting with a needle felting should not be offered below grades, I don't remember, whatever grade, because that stabbing movement is too harsh and it's not developmentally appropriate. I'm not following that advice. I mean, my kids have been really advanced when it comes to fine motor skills. I have an almost 3-year-old who is really trying to needle felt, and obviously we don't let her unsupervised, but she keeps grabbing the needles from her sisters. And the kid can stab really well without stabbing her fingers. Disclaimer again, I don't let her do it, but she will grab the needles, and she can. She can't create something. She can't do needle felting and create an object, but she is doing it carefully enough that she doesn't stab herself. So it really depends. Like, and it can be hard as a parent if you see that your child is actually advanced in some sectors, like that the school is trying to keep them in line with the class, with the average class, or is not offering enough challenge, or if a child is not progressing enough, that there is not enough support. This is an important note, because Waldorf schools cannot, unfortunately, in most cases, cannot cater well to children with extra needs. I'm not talking about special needs children. Definitely, they cannot cater to them. That's why you have special education. But also, it could be, and I've heard more cases of that, that if your child is too advanced, like in the sense of being, how do I call it? If they do have a very advanced IQ, if they're really charismatic, if they do need a lot of challenge, if they do need a lot of emotional support, then probably a Waldorf school would not be able to cater for them to the extent that they need it. There are extra classes, there are art therapy lessons. You do always have a person that supports kids that are in need, like, for example, if the parents get a divorce, if someone dies, you do have all that kind of social support as well. But you might find that if your child has, for example, dyslexia or dyscalculia or specific issues, you do have to keep pressing the school to see if they can provide the extra support. And there are in between solutions, like maybe they can still keep attending their Waldorf school, and then you hire help from outside. You hire a tutor, or the school hires a tutor if there are more kids facing the same issues. But it is not a built-in system. A reason for that being, there is, both in the Netherlands and Germany, a big shortage of teachers because of the bad pay, because of the bad conditions of work, because they are not valued as teachers should be valued, which means that especially like when it comes to Waldorf education, the teachers need to have an extra, they have a different type of education, they have an extra layer of education. It is very hard to find highly qualified teachers. So it can be that you have a relatively big class, and you might think that, especially if your child is more like shy or introverted, or is trying to hide the fact that they are having difficulties, it can take more time to identify that something is wrong, that they're falling behind, or that they're getting bored, and hence again they can fall behind because they don't pay attention. So that is a note of caution. Make sure your child is challenged enough, but is also supported enough, and experiences pleasure in learning. And that obviously goes in any school setting, not just Waldorf schools. But I feel the need to mention that, because as classes become bigger and bigger in all schools in the Netherlands and Germany as well, it is good to know that we as parents should take a closer look to what our kids can and cannot do, and notice also the subtle changes in their relation to school. Like, are they going happily? Are they coming back home happy? And all that stuff. Um, I think I've covered most of the basics. Let me think what else. Oh, another one of the pluses, like green, lots of green in the school play area. Waldorf schools typically have like trees that the kids can climb on. They plant things, they harvest things, they cook with those things. I just really, really, really love that aspect of nature, and how it is really integrated into the education. I think that's the last part that I missed. Um, if you do have any more questions about world of education, please feel free to comment. You can also send me an email, or you can, comment on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I'm not sure where this video is going to end up to, or podcast. But I'm really open to talking about my experience with that type of education. Um, so yeah, I hope that this video did make some sense, and there was a storyline in the end. I could tell my story even without a draft. And I will see you soon. I will try to keep posting videos, even though we are in the middle of a movement in a disruptive period. But actually, I do get a lot of energy of communicating with you and sharing with you whatever little nuggets of wisdom I have. Have a lovely day. Keep your fingers crossed that we find a house in Germany soon, because I really want to move. I'm so bad at being patient. Thank you, and see you again soon. Bye.